Hey, everybody. We're going to get started in just a second. We're waiting for Amy, so hopefully she can hop in on the thing. For anybody who's listening to the playback, could skip for just a second. I'll put my hand up like this so that you know when to start. I got showered today. It's a miracle.
Nice job.
Seriously, I've been old hair for a lot of days. I was gonna do a refresh picture, maybe. Let's see. So let's see what she's saying. Dang it, where's my book? Oh, right here. Do you know if you can pause the Zoom? Oh, you can pause. Okay, everybody, we are so excited that you guys are joining us for today, whether you're in person, like live on camera, or if you're listening to the playback. So we are on week number 4, and we're doing the third law to make it easy. And we're going to read up until page 169. We were trying to like divide it a little bit more evenly. It was tricky for me to decide how to do that. So I was grateful for Seth's help. So I would love to open it up to see where we can start sharing, and hopefully Amy can hop on soon to join us as well. So, or any reflection that you've had from what you've read, either way. Just in your life application for this week.
I can start out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, totally. You're doing great.
All right. I just with the whole photography class at the beginning, I thought of my perfectionism that I've been trying to overcome most of my life, right? And I just thought, you know, if I was in the group where I just had to do like 100 pictures for my assignment, I probably would have gotten that done and I would have learned along the way. If I was in the group with the one picture that had to be perfect, it would have taken me the entire semester to figure out what I was going to do before I even took the one picture, right? And I, you know, I relate that to so many things in my life, but you know, if we're talking about our health, then sometimes I have to start and just really think and plan through everything before I even like take a step. And I just love this idea of just you know, then moving into his whole just, well, I love Voltaire's quote, the best is the enemy of the good, right? So instead of doing good things, I just hold off until I can do the best thing, right? But I just love that all of his just little steps are what's really important here, not the perfect step.
So true. One thing that's really helped me with perfectionism, I mean, I don't think I really ever have really struggled with that, but there's pieces that are identifiable within your identity that when you are like good at something or you really care about something, you tend to be more perfectionistic in those areas because it's part of your identity. So it does apply to everybody. But one thing that like coaching, like Amber and Jared would often talk about, quoting I think Jennifer Findlay some when she would say, perfectionism is an immature approach to life. And the truth about that is that we're all immature. And like there is a piece of us doing that, you know, just saying it's not going to be good enough unless everybody can see that it's perfect. Yeah, I don't know. Just like too much worry about what other people think within that realm, right? So it's good for this awareness. I was thinking about the habit of like surroundings and setting yourself up for success in that way too. And he was, as I was listening today, he was saying something about, and I was listening, so I didn't have my book out in front of me. So if you know what I'm talking about, find it. But he was saying, you know, some people are hard on themselves for having not enough self-discipline or motivation and those things, but a lot of times they're not setting their circumstances or their surroundings up in a way that would support that type of goal. And so I thought that that was powerful too. I like what you were saying. Are we starting on page for this today's reading? Since I'm just gonna make sure. Are we starting on page 44 or later? It's gotta be later. Right? What are we?
Aren't we 142?
142.
Okay, that's what I wondered, because I've read the up to the thing, but thank you.
I just wanted to chime in and talk about, I feel like sometimes, like, even me, like, we've all had a client or we've all had a coach or even ourselves who, we get in analysis paralysis. There's too much information, or we feel like we have to get organized before we can do anything, or we have to have more education and more information, right? I have this really good friend who would be so good. She would do so well on program, but she has to know everything before she can even get started. And I'm like, oh, and I used to be that way too, but for real, we just have to get into action. Like, you just have to make a decision that you want to do something different, that something else has to change, and get into action. And then you learn as you go, right? All of us, like, we've learned as we've taken this journey. And I think that's powerful, is that we just need to get into action.
Yeah. And it's like the parenting analogy. We don't read all these books and absolutely know everything there is about parenting. Like, you literally start and you just do what
The best you can.
I like that, Michelle. It says, how long does it actually take to form a new habit in the Dr. Anderson's Habits of Health book? I was so surprised that he didn't quote this, because the way that originally, some people say it takes 30 days to create a habit or something like that. And that is actually, I don't have it pulled down, but I just saw this in the Atomic book. But it was on a cadaver lab that they were like looking to see how the muscles worked or something on a dead cadaver, and it was like took 30 days or something. I don't know how they came up with that. It's in the book, the Habits of Health book, but it's really 66 days to create a habit. And actually, what he says about it is the neurons that fire together wire together, and then just like that long-term potentiation in the habit line. And I think that some habits are going to be harder to break than others as well. Do you guys have any thoughts on how long does it actually take to form a new habit? So on that section.
I don't know if it was that section. It was chapter 13. Is that where we're at?
I'm on page 144.
Okay.
43.
Oh, yeah. Never mind then. Different section.
Oh, I didn't lead it very well. One of the most common questions is, I hear that how long does it take to build a new habit? But what people should really be asking is how many does it take to form a new habit? That is, how many repetitions are required to make a habit automated? So.
Yeah, I like where it said the amount of time with a habit is not as important as the number of times.
Yeah. Well, and I know it's later, but I just loved the 2-minute rule part where, you know, we talked about micro habits. I think it's the same kind of idea. It's like making it so easy, simple, that you can't fail in it. And really, I think that's where most people get caught up in creations of habits, is they try to do too much and then they aren't consistent. It's really like he says, it's the showing up and it's the doing it. And I loved the example of the guy going to the gym, and I think it was like he would only stay there for 5 minutes, every day. And then after 2 weeks, he was like, well, I'm already here. I might as well do more. And like, that is, it's such a powerful concept, because I think so many times we're like, well, that's just not very much. That's not going to get me my results. But that's where we really, if we can establish the habit of just doing it and showing up, I mean, that's the hardest part.
Yeah. And in that same note, it's like with clients, when I ask them to read 1 or 2 pages a day in the life book, they resist that so much, and it literally takes 1 minute. Like 1 minute. And so it's just funny to me, like we make this fundamental choice to get healthier or whatever goal that we have, a fundamental choice in that process, and then plugging into the steps to get there, it's like they haven't created that habit. And so talking to them about, I mean, it's a priority, it's like their commitment. So for the gym analogy, like, do you want to be a gym goer? Like, do you want that habit? And it will roll into all the other habits as well. Like, it will filter it through. So I think that that's a great point. So when I was talking about trying to give you that quote earlier, priming the environment for the future use. So the purpose of resetting is not simply to clean up after the last action, but to prepare for the next action. So he was using different examples. If you cook a healthy breakfast, place the skillet on the stove, set the cooking spray on the counter, and lay out any utensils that you need the night before. My daughter's read this book. I told you guys, she's been doing that, and she's been having eggs every morning, and just like, she'll set things out and really like take to heart what this book says. I really wish I could take her with me to convention for James Clear. But it's like, I actually don't think that you can if you're under 18. So I want to draw more, put your pencils and pens and notebooks on the top of your desk within an easy reach. So like that visual reminder is so important. And so for my weights, I have a bench right by where I park my cart. And so I have my weights there all the time. And like, I literally have created that habit of doing it every single day before I shower, for sure. So that's been good. And maybe you guys can like apply whatever we've been talking about, like something from this chapter of like, what are you doing with your own life right now?
I like how he talks about the opposite too, like making it harder for bad habits. And I think a lot about, our environment and what is it called? Like structural design. Maybe that's not the right word. I don't know. Anyway, just so like for me personally, if there's sweet things in the house, they have to be put away. Like they cannot be in sight. Or you have to like go out of your way to get something. But most of the time I just say, just hide them. I don't want to see them. And so it's just that same idea. Like it makes it harder and it seems like such a simple concept, but it seems so hard for a lot of people to not realize like there's things that you don't want in your home if you can't resist them. But if they are, like, tell your kids, put this out of reach. Like I never allow cookies to sit out. It's just because I know, and it's just knowing yourself and making something harder, and then it's fine. Like they're fine.
I love that analogy because for me too, like when it's a birthday, I rarely make a dang good cake. It's like usually like a box mix that's not that great. That's like frosting from the store because I'm not tempted to eat it. And my kids don't know the difference. And so for some of the older kids, they do. And so like I'm making like a caramel frosting, everything from scratch. But for the other kids, they don't even know. And so just kind of even like what's being cooked in my home, I've taught my kids how to cook, and I kind of rarely make desserts. As before I had worked on my health, I was literally making them almost probably every day, trying to give them away and stuff like that. But I was totally eating them too, which is okay, like because I was just where I was, but it's like not supporting what I really wanted. So Amy, you made it. We're so glad.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I tried to type in the 1, 2, 3, 4 several times. It didn't work. Then I tried to type in a long code with a bunch of letters and numbers. That didn't work. And then I tried to type in the same Zoom room number and it worked. So that's weird.
Well,
But
you're here. So we'll fill you in. We were just kind of sharing from this chapter, like our own personal applications to some of the principles from this last section. So you could either, it's very likely that we've missed whatever you were gonna say anyways. So just
yeah.
share anything that kind of came to mind or that you are thinking about.
Well, I kind of highlighted some things and then I had kind of made a couple questions. So I'll kind of just start and then y'all can just chime in. So I like the third law, make it easy, because you know our brains, you know, they said they likes to take the path of least resistance. So we need easy. And I remember something years ago, Curtly taught on like a training we did about your brain and like new pathways. And she was like saying, imagine you're going through like a going on a hike and you got this path and it's already made for you, but then you like see a cool way that's never been like traveled before, that's just like all grass, but you're like, I'm gonna cut across and go this way, and you just slowly make, like, the first time you go, you just like have to clear the path and it's really hard to get through, but then you go the next time down that same path because it's really cool and the grass is like weakened, and then like the third, fourth, fifth time it starts to become dirt and you actually start to make a path, and so you're basically trailing like you're making a new trail. And she's like, that's how your brain is. It's like you can make these new little neuro pathways. And that's exactly what they called it in here. Not like that, but it's like a science thing where it's basically you're making new neural pathways, and it's just like repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Eventually, I don't know, makes it a habit, and that's kind of how your brain pathways work. So I thought that was cool. And then I loved how they talked about, you know, like kind of like time stacking. Like he said, whenever he waits for his shower to heat up, he cleans his toilet, because you need a shower after you clean the toilet anyway, but you're kind of just making that habit easy because it's like you're waiting in the bathroom anyway for the shower to heat up. I read that and I thought that's really cool, but we need to do that more with our life, like making habits easy to where it's like opportunities where it's just like it just like makes sense to do it. So I love that. And I was going to just ask, have y'all made any habits where it's like kind of double stacking things that it just makes it fit together like a puzzle? And like, what ways have y'all done that with your health or with, exercise or with eating? Like, have y'all done any things like that that just make it fit together really cool and really well? Like synchronicity, I guess is the word.
I have some weights. I got tennis elbow, stupid tennis elbow. I'm so mad about it. Like hurts so bad. I have these little baby weights and they're like right here. And so whenever I have a training or like I'm working at the computer, then I'll like do like my exercises to try to grow some muscle. So that's one that I have. And then that huge ball is my reminder, like a huge visual reminder to do a couple exercises there too, because I'm just like specific to focusing on a few things right now. And so that visual reminder is just so helpful. And so, but when I sit down, I do my arm weights at least once a day. And then before I shower or during my workout, I'm trying to use that ball. And so those are some for me.
Anyone else?
I just love to meal prep. Like, I am not kidding. If I don't have a plan, it's not going to happen. Right. And so for me, I have to have what I'm going to eat for the whole week and grocery shopped and most of the prep done before, because I don't want to cook every day. I don't. And so I just have all of that already done. And for me, it works for my brain that that makes it life easier to do a whole bunch of work ahead of time and then have the rest of the week to be easy. So
I agree. Okay. Stephanie, did you want to share?
Yeah, I was just gonna say one thing that my husband actually kind of helped our kids get in the habit of, and all of us, is to like, and probably a lot of families already do this, but like clean your plates after, like scrub them, put them on the side of the sink, not just throw everything in the sink, because we have some kids who tend to just want to just not think about that, right? And then it makes it easier to do the dishes at the end of the day. So I think that's a good example of that. Was it potentiation where you're prepping something to make it easier for something later?
Yes. Yes, kind of like work as you go. I tell my son, like, clean as you go. Like, like I think that it helps a lot than to have to make it be a big thing at the end. Um, okay, so I'll move on. I wanted to touch on like the 2-minute rule, and they said that like you can't like it's kind of it reminds me of like if you're hiking a big mountain and you look at the very top and it's daunting and overwhelming and it just feels like, oh my God, I'll never get there. But if you just look at like the 3 steps in front of you and you like look at the next tree and you're like, if I can just make it to that next tree. And then you're like, if I can just make it to that next big rock, and you just break it down. That kind of reminds me of what they're talking about, like in the 2-minute rule, where you make it very easy and then moderate and then hard and then very hard. And so just kind of chunk it into like doable things that doesn't freak out your brain. Cause I know if I see like a big pile of laundry that I have to fold, it'll freak my brain out. But if I'm like, okay, I have 1 minute, I'm just going to fold 10 and go put them away. And then I don't know, when I have to go back to do it later, it's not as daunting or overwhelming if I just break it into small chunks, chunk it up. So how do y'all chunk it up?
I
I
guess,
know for one of my sons, he has ADD. And so when he was little, cleaning his room was too daunting for him. And so if I would just say, go find all your socks and put them away. Now here's the trash bag. Go find all the trash and put that away. Like it like chunked it for him. And I think in anything we're trying to accomplish, like just like you said, Amy, it's important to chunk it because then it's just not as overwhelming.
I agree. Anyone else have any tips they do or ways they break it down? He called it the gateway habit. Make it a gateway habit. I like that word.
yeah, kind of like a gateway drug. So, one of the things that I just within my business, I've really tried to make as clear as I can what I want to achieve in like identity base and different things, but I do have action steps that are really important to me to do every day. And not every day looks like the same, but having it in like a couple certain things, then I'm able to be like, okay, I've got to touch it here, 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 here. And I kind of do it throughout the day. In the morning for sure. And then that just like sets my day that it's like, oh, kind of feels nice to have that done. So with work, I think it works that way too for me.
Anyone else want to share? Okay, I like that one quote stood out to me. It was on page 165 where it said, it's better to do less than you hoped than to do nothing at all. So like if you see whatever it is, like make one phone call, even if you can't call all 10 people like you planned, and you just say, I'll call one, or make one post or whatever it is, or whether it's relating to your business or your health or your families or your household things or relationships, just doing less than you had hoped is better than nothing at all. I think it kind of goes back to that black and white thinking that we get, like all or nothing. And if I struggle with that myself. So if I really just try to say, how can I be creative? What can I do? Versus like looking at everything and saying, I can't do all of it. And say, well, what can I do? So that's, that was kind of the end part of that chapter. And y'all went on, did y'all go all the way to the end of, did y'all stop at 169 or go all the way to the end of the third law? Because I think there was one more chapter 14. I don't know if we're going to cover that next week, or Jen, do you want me to keep going and cover that one or just stop?
Steph and I were trying to like rehash how much reading was done.
Yeah, it's up to 169 for this week, right?
Yeah, that's what I had written. So,
yeah.
So basically we're going to start the how to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible on, says 14, chapter 14. It's on page 170 is where it starts, 169. And then we'll go from there up to the next. And what is the next? Let's kind of hurry and say that. So I can find it.
Make
goes
it
up to-
satisfying.
Yeah. 204 is our stopping point for next week.
Okay, great. Awesome.
Well, I'm so sorry. I hopped on late, you guys. I apologize. I really
Right.
did plan and I
Perfect.
don't know. But thank you, Jen, for taking it over and helping out. So
Yeah, for sure. Brianna, Christy, do you guys have anything else you want to add before we close? You're good? Okay,
Nope.
super awesome. And we'll meet together next week and let's encourage to invite our peeps too, our friends. We'll see you guys. Bye.
Thank you.